Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great day, great start to the week. Welcome to another episode of Narad News. Thank you for showing up and thank you for showing your support. So, after a while, or maybe even the first time, I guess not the first time, but I've done some deep dives, I've done some deep dives which have been more positive. But I mean, after a while, we have seen the news cycle come up with some like positive news. Actually, a lot of it, almost an overload of positive news today. So I just wanted to come and discuss the two topics that I found the most interesting. One of them is obviously trending in and out, right? That India and US finally have some sort of a trade agreement in place. Um, President Trump has, I guess, truth socialed about it. I don't know. Do you still call it a tweet? And then, of course, Prime Minister Modi's account has also let out a tweet. So it's official. Like both the sides have agreed that there has been a deal, and both the sides have agreed that relations have to get better from where they are. And yeah, this is where we are now. Some of you may be thinking, how did this happen so quickly? Now, I forgot to. Okay, let's put it like this, right? Okay. So, I kind of have a feeling there are a couple of things, right, that are worth looking at over here. Let me pull up uh, President Trump's tweet. That it's on Truth Social, but I guess I'll just use the word tweet. I just don't know what else to call it. But let's go here. Let's see. Thank you. Oops. This is going into the other news story for today. So much for the surprise, but I will go to this one first, right? So I guess by this time all of you have honestly already seen this, but it was an honor to speak with Prime Minister Modi of India this morning. He's one of my greatest friends and a powerful and respected leader of his country. Amazing. We spoke about many things, including trade and ending the war with Russia and Ukraine. Okay, many things, including trade and the war with Russia and Ukraine. So I guess there was more to talk about than just trade and the Russia-Ukraine war. I think there has been an understanding. This is what my sort of let me resize this a bit. This is a little too big, guys. Okay, yeah, I think last year when uh, President Putin he went to Alaska and met with President Trump. I think there is some sort of an understanding between uh, between the two on how the war is going to end. I firmly think that some sort of an agreement has been reached, and only time will sort of bring that out. Obviously, such a conversation will always happen behind glass doors, like not glass doors, sorry, like steel doors, like completely in secrecy. So we'll never really find out about it. The only thing is, the last thing that was sort of agreed upon between the US and Russia on the war, that actually had a positive response from President Putin. So, he has been able to sort of get what he wants in that sense. So, I'm guessing he agreed to stop buying Russian oil. I think there is a hint of exaggeration in this because, from what I've heard, the February orders for Russian oil have already been placed by India. We have seen a reduction in the amount of Russian oil that India is buying. I just don't think it's going to stop. We got to remember, while there was a top secret conversation between President Trump and President Putin, there was also a top secret conversation between PM Modi and President Putin. So I don't think it's going to go down to zero, but I still think it's going to reduce. And there's already an understanding on that. India will get something else. right? Like natural gas. Russia has minerals. So there's a lot that India can take from Russia. It's just okay. I won't buy oil. You never told me to stop buying the other stuff. I'm just gonna go buy that. I have a feeling it's kind of gonna go that way, right? And to buy much more from the United States and potentially Venezuela. So India is one of the few countries that actually has the capability to process the heavy sort of quote unquote the dirty crude that comes out of Venezuela. Like the Jamnagar refinery can actually do it. So it makes sense. They're already the capacity already exists. Yeah, I'm curious on okay, you okay. I'm not sure how US entirely benefits if India gets oil directly from Venezuela. Are they talking about processed oil or crude? I would guess it's crude. But then again, if the American companies are the ones pumping out the crude that way, okay, profits go to America in that sense. So this will help end the war in Ukraine, which is taking place right now, with thousands of people dying each and every week. Out of friendship and respect for the PM, and as per his request, effective immediately, we agreed to a trade deal between the US and India, whereby the US will charge a reduced reciprocal tariff, lowering it from 25 to 18%. They will likewise move forward to reduce their tariffs and non tariff barriers against the United States to zero. I think there are some categories on which India will reduce their tariffs to zero. And I finally think that India has basically said, okay, no access to agricultural markets and no access to dairy. I think on other things, even if hypothetically India went down to zero, some American goods may just be too expensive for regular, average Indian earners to buy. Or it could just be more of a preference thing, like what happened with Harley Davidson. You can reduce the duty to zero, but if no one's gonna like your bike because, you know, the Bullet is more, or the Royal Enfield Bullet is more the standard, midlife crisis bike in India. People are just gonna go with that. Preferences don't change overnight just because you flood, just because I guess not flood, but I guess if just because you allow a foreign product which may have a similar look and feel, preferences just don't change. And that was my case with the whole Canada China deal. Sure, Chinese EVs can show up to Canada, but ultimately it's the Canadian buyer who's going to have to put money down on the table to actually buy it, right? So that's why I wasn't overly concerned about it. Okay, you can have the EVs, but if the Canadian populace, which in large part it is, sort of already thinking that, okay, Chinese EVs, not my cup of tea, you will have some people buying them, no denying. Like if they are cheaper, some people will buy them. But if there is a cheap Chinese EV sitting in the market, other brands would also be sort of forced to reduce their prices to a reasonable level. So the option pool actually increases. And that's what I'm thinking. The tariff barrier has been reduced to zero in categories which will just become more competitive in India. And the Indian consumer may or may not develop an affinity for the American equivalent. That's my take on this. So the quote unquote the zero is more of, okay, we are letting your companies come in. Now it's up to your companies to decide how they convince the Indian buyer to actually buy, perhaps even at a premium if they're being manufactured in the US, right? It's going to be very expensive. Or even if they're being manufactured elsewhere, American products generally come with a premium because they are of a pretty good quality, no doubt. But again, does the average Indian consumer even want that kind of quality? Do they prioritize that kind of quality? Yet to be seen. The Prime Minister also committed to buy American at a much higher level, in addition to $500 billion of US energy, technology, agricultural coal, and many other products. So President Trump is mentioning agricultural here. My thing is, I've not been able to find a document right now which is going to sort of detail what the deal is. I couldn't find it. So I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm just not sure what. I'm just not sure what the extent of the what categories of goods or what categories of agricultural goods have been agreed to, to reduce the tariff to zero. I highly doubt that has happened. I'm extremely skeptical about that. Our amazing relationship with India will even be stronger going forward. PM Modi and I are two people that get things done, something that cannot be said for most. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Uh, classic President Trump. So, um, I mean, again, we know that President Trump has his style of wording these truths. Um, till I don't see the official document, I'm not going to say, oh wow, there is zero tariffs on Indian agriculture. I just don't see that happening. Like, I cannot, like, it's literally, yeah, it's literally, yeah, any government that does that in India lets in a bunch of foreign agricultural products to come in, especially things that India grows in sufficient quantities, and especially things that may sort of even not align with the Indian cultural norms. I mean, yeah, that's you're not going to be around in Indian politics much longer if you do that. So I would really have to see what these categories are, and I guess only time is going to tell that. Um, let's quickly go over what PM Modi said in his tweet on this. Oh, thank you, X, for not loading. You know what? I'm just gonna do a quick PM Modi X tweet on deal with US. Let's see what shows up. Images, maybe that one will just show up here. Okay, open link in new tab. There we go. Yeah, go for it. I'm trying to open that, man. Okay, so this is a Times Now repost. Wonderful to speak with my friend President Trump today. Delighted that Made in India products will now have a reduced tariff of 18%. Big thanks to President Trump on behalf of the 1.4 billion people of India for this wonderful announcement. When two large economies and the world's largest democracies work together, it benefits our people and unlocks immense opportunities for mutually beneficial cooperation. President Trump's leadership is vital for global peace, stability, and prosperity. India fully supports his efforts for peace. I look forward to working closely with him to take our partnership to unprecedented heights. So, let's put it this way. PM Modi's tweet is not mentioning any numbers. PM Modi's tweet is also not mentioning any categories of products. It's only President Trump's TruthSocial post that is listing out some of these things. Now, when I tried to do an official search, as I already mentioned, I wasn't able to find much. So it's a little up in the air on what's exactly been agreed on. Although PM Modi's tweet mentions leadership is vital for global peace, that is, President Trump's leadership is vital for global peace, stability, and prosperity. India fully supports his efforts for peace. Now, President Trump's TS post says that there has been an agreement to end the Russia-Ukraine conflict. I think the three leaders are pretty much on the same page in terms of ending the war. Now, the biggest sort of opposite thinker in the whole Russia-Ukraine situation was actually Western Europe. If you guys remember, India and EU have just signed, quote unquote, the mother of all deals at the World Economic Forum. My thinking is that there was more than that that happened. The mother of all deals just became the highlight just because it's It's overall it's expected to be worth $1 trillion of trade, which is, well, half of what uh, President Trump has claimed in his Truth Social post, which is double. Sorry, the trade with the U.S. is supposed to be 500 billion, so it's still a, it's still a much smaller deal in that sense. But I also feel PM Modi and President Trump, while they were at the WEF, in the back, on the side benches, or away from the cameras, have actually come to the table on some sort of a stoppage to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and without declaring openly, because the EU has to show that they are, on their stance. What has probably happened is they'll probably not make a statement, but when the war is finally stopped, EU is maybe just, going to be silent, the silent partner on board. And in return, President Trump has already made a statement that they're not going to go looking for, any sort of occupation of Greenland. The agreement that is already existing will stay as is. US will do what it needs to do from a national security perspective on Greenland, but they are not necessarily looking to walk in with their troops and essentially at that point break NATO. This is again my hypothesis. This is what I'm thinking, because both the leaders have focused on peace. That's the one common area on where their posts are overlapping. So very interesting times ahead, to say the least. And of course, as and when there is an official document that comes out and talks about what the categories that have been agreed on this trade deal are, I would probably do a deep dive on it, because it would be something that I would be very much interested in. I also want to spend a couple of minutes to try and point out what this could mean for Canada. And unfortunately, Canada may end up on the back foot a bit, because Prime Minister Carney is scheduled to go to India sometime end of February to have a deal with India, right? Now, one of the big things that Canada could give India was oil. And Canadian oil from the oil sands is also quote unquote dirty oil. It comes with a lot of impurities. And again, the Jamnagar refinery, and India basically has the refining capacity for that. Now, how India balances its oil imports, processed oil from US, crude from Venezuela, existing crude import from Russia, will now dictate how much can they actually get from Canada. And I won't be surprised if President Trump and Prime Minister Modi have reached some sort of an agreement on India not taking Canadian oil, or maybe taking such a small amount that Canada does not end up necessarily benefiting. Now, Canada can sell other things to India, minerals being the other big basket of raw products that Canada has a large quantity of. This is a very big question mark in my mind on now what the deal between Canada and India would look like. Canada could try and climb up to the #1 spot when it comes to lentils. Saskatchewan and Manitoba are already making progress in that area, right? The premiers of the two provinces or maybe, yeah, I think Saskatchewan and Manitoba. I think the premiers of those two provinces have already been to India and have been having talks, apart from Foreign Minister Anita Anand. So, interesting times ahead for Canada, and unfortunately, more challenging times. Um, if if any of my hypothesis here is correct, then it's just more challenging times, right? Now I don't know who has seen the news, and I guess this is becoming a little negative, but I'm just trying to put this into perspective, right? Like at the end of the day, I live in Canada, and what happens to Canada affects my daily life, right? So now Canada's GDP actually contracted 0.5% in the previous quarter, in the quarter that just ended in 2025. Now that in itself is a little bit of a worrisome sign. I would say most of that could just be explained away by just by accounting for reduced number of international students, and the fact that the number of hours they could work has now been reduced to 24 or 26 if I'm not wrong, from previously it was unlimited. So some of that is just a correction on that. Some of that could be that a lot of federal workers received layoff notices, end of last year, now starting this year as well. So some of that could just be because the size of the federal government is reducing. You have fewer salaries to pay. Severances have already been accounted for. So maybe that's why this contraction has happened. Another reason could just be that, you know, when we see the absolute growth of, just the nominal GDP of Canada, it actually went up, but GDP per capita actually dropped. So now these two numbers are maybe reaching some sort of a middle ground. And in that sense, a contraction was inevitable, essentially. So I'm a little, yeah, I'm a little worried about how Prime Minister Carney's trip to India will turn out. I wish him all the very best. I know there's a lot of news around Canada about snap elections. The last thing Canada needs is another bloody election just wasting a bunch of money, right? The government is taking steps to reduce the size of the federal government. Yeah, you try to have another election, you'll have to hire more temporary workers, pay them. It's just a wastage of money. You may not agree, and this is going out to all Canadians, you may not agree with everything the government is doing, but stability is key to us getting out of the lost decade, right? At this point, let the government just work. Let them do their thing. And if it starts going too awry, I think the setup of the parliament is good enough to try and bring about a re-election if absolutely needed. Right now is not that time. Right? The highest amount of job growth in Canada for the last 5 years has been through the government. That is, if that doesn't worry you, I don't know what will. Right? That is not the sign of a healthy economy. A thriving private sector is what spurs the economy forward, not endless government spending. Anyway, I will now switch gears back to happy things, and let me bring up I personally think this is a pretty big news. I'll have to sort of. Okay, okie dokie. Let's change. Okay, let me change this to Okay. Yeah, I guess I'll have to unvisibilize this and then team swims. Okay. So this one. So this, I would say, this happy news came out of Australia. It looks like there was, well, there was a there were turbulent currents in a part of Western Australia near Perth. A teenager has been praised for his superhuman hero effort after swimming 4 kilometers through rough, shark frequented waters to save his family, who were swept out to sea in the waters of Western Australia's southwest coast. So, this basically one of the big cities of Australia is Perth. This incident happened, in a suburb of Perth called Kindelup. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But the reason I really wanted to highlight this is we have been getting so much negativity last year and this year so far. As soon as I saw the whole trade deal come through, I was happy, but I mean, I guess if you guys haven't already noticed, not like 100% happy, just because how does it affect Canada's relationship with India, and one that they've been trying to mend for so long, and also in the context that okay, Canada is not really best friends with the US these days. But anyways, this really just put a smile on my face. I don't know how many of you have heard this story called The Hero of Harlem. I'm not sure if this was based on a real incident or not, but the Netherlands is made up of dikes. Like, not made up of dikes, but since most of the country is actually below sea level, they have erected walls along the water so that it doesn't come and flood the country. And one of these stories goes that okay, this boy noticed that there was a crack in the dike and water was just starting to seep through. It was a cold night, and he just kind of went and plugged his finger there till the next morning someone came, saw the boy. I think the story is known as the Hero of Harlem. So yeah, this is a real life incident, but I couldn't help get reminded of that story, right? So amidst all the negativity, we have these green shoots of positivity that show up, that just really warm your heart, and you're just okay, yeah, not everything is going to shit, I guess. um, so this was something, kudos to the heroic boy. All power to him. I hope it looks like from the article that all the family members are safe. The Australian Coast Guard has basically said, okay, please be careful, waters can get rough. Don't go in too far just because you don't know where the water may end up carrying you. Even if you are experienced in water sports, exercise caution. I think that's expected in such a case. But it looks like this boy, um, he he swam with the life jacket on for the first 2 hours, and then maybe he had to lose the life jacket, or maybe it just slipped away. But then it looks like uh, he was without a life jacket for 2 hours. Swimming 4 kilometers in such turbulent, deep waters is not a joke. I did have a brief stint in my life where I was into a lot of swimming, and yeah, I totally I totally understand what this little boy has gone through. I mean, 13-year-old just swimming for 4 hours, it's insane, and that too in waters that are frequented by sharks. That obviously just makes the whole event even more terrifying. Frankly, I don't know if I would have been able to do it. I'm not sure what made this boy jump into the water and say that, okay, I'm gonna get to the authorities no matter what, right? Anyway, guys, that's all for today. I think we just don't have too much clarity on what type of a deal has been signed. We also should remember that the India EU deal is going to take a whole year to actually materialize. It's going to be put in front of the EU Parliament. All the 27 member nations have to agree in some form or the other, as opposed to the US, where you basically have to have just one party in agreement, which is, I guess, the US Congress and the US President and the cabinet of secretaries. But interesting times to come. We will be looking out for the official document. If there's an official document that shows up on what categories have been agreed on, the tariffs being reduced, what India is planning to buy from the US, what US is going to allow in at a lower tariff, etc., etc., that would definitely be much more useful than just looking over two tweets. But I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention because this is a big moment in the way the new rule book is being written across the world. The so-called the multipolar world. This is a big milestone in terms of sort of cementing that in some way. All right, guys. Hope you have a great rest of the evening, and if you're in India, hope you have a great Tuesday. And see you guys soon. Bye bye.